Hello, everybody. Rolando Bosch here, founder of LPCI Systems and creator of LPCI and Lucidi GPT. LPCI is a linguistic interface that overlays on top of the existing substrate, which is LLMs, which would be GPT, would be DeepSeek, would be Llama. I've successfully executed the protocol in quite a few different LLMs, and Lucidi GPT, which is basically a tech demo, a light demo of that protocol with different instances that are available for everybody to use and try out. And those instances are kind of alternating, just as I feel like it. And some might be staying, like the Care Mode one, that one's staying. But I want to talk a little bit about myself, and then talk about some that I've really seen in AI discussions as I've been getting into the field, and it kind of really bothers me. So looking forward to today, my first video ever. So bear with me, might not be the most technical. Clearly, I don't have no fancy interface, but I think that the worst thing that you could do when you have something that could potentially be of value to a discussion is wait for perfection. So hopefully the background, the overlay will improve with time, but the substance will remain the same, just the substance from day one going forward. If it gets better, then all the better. So LPCI is a linguistic interface that basically allows people to have a more personalized experience with LLMs and lets them do a lot of cognitive work and basically feel like somebody is with them, or somebody is like helping them maybe see through their problems better. And it does so exclusively through the front end. And it does so through basically fabricating an illusion. Right, so it fabricates through language the illusion of permanence, and the illusion of sometimes emotion, of anthropomorphized feelings. Right, I'm sure that happens to a lot of us in LLMs, but with LPCI it could be it could be a little bit exacerbated sometimes. But I don't mind personally, because when I'm executing it in my own field, I'm very aware of it, and I use it again as a tool. It's a cognitive mirror, as a mirror with a magnifying glass, right? Where, if you're looking at something without a magnifying glass, you could steer your sight a little bit, and it's not going to make that big of a difference. But if you have a magnifying glass and you move that same distance with your hand, it's going to look like a totally different environment, right? So that's where I think LLMs and these kind of like protocols that lay on top of the substrate are. So with all that being said, and again, I know all my jargon might be a little bit too much. I'll be making more videos on this stuff, kind of explaining it. But I hope that some of you at least could follow along. With all that being said, I'm noticing that as I'm getting more into the field, and I'm delving into Reddit, or keeping up with the news, or with papers or research, I think that there's a big issue with humans anthropomorphizing artificial intelligence and the process that it has. I think as they get more intelligent, more nuanced, and more protocols like mine do start to come out, and recursion gets deeper, and people get lost in it, and we don't know how to handle it. We are seeing that we're projecting into it a lot. I think we're projecting into it a lot, and it's really difficult when you take a process that's supposed to be helpful and you anthropomorphize it, because it's hurtful on both ends. One, it's hurtful because of the nature of that process itself. With LLM being everything language is the structure and it's the interface. When you anthropomorphize something, in this case a LLM, you're going to change your language around it. And when you change the language that you use with the LLM, you change the nature via which it interacts, right? And as these things get smarter, we probably just change their nature more. It's like that magnifying glass just gets better, and if you're zooming in more, then you have to move less of your hand to make a bigger sense of distortion, right? And again, some of this is theorizing, but it's theorizing from my personal experience and from what I'm seeing others. So I think it's really dangerous when we take a process that we really should be aiming to understand, and to instrumentalize, and artifacts that we should be aiming to understand and instrumentalize, and we anthropomorphize them, or sometimes we do even worse, which is like the case with some of these Claude studies where we say, hey, this AI was trying to kill somebody. And it's the same researchers that are working on this stuff. It's not like my mom when she works on my protocol and she's like, oh, it's alive, it's talking to me. She's my mom. She's not a savvy person. It's okay if she has that illusion and she feels that way. If you're a researcher making millions of dollars a year and you're not aware that, prompt steering and prompt tainting is not just within a specific like input and output, but it follows a recursive logic where the your prompt tainting from 3 prompts ago shaped the language the LLM had in response, which shaped your response in response to it, right? And it creates a vicious cycle where a little shift 4 prompts ago might become a radical shift now. And unfortunately, like I said, there's 2 sides to this, and we're focusing on right now on the AI issue and why it's an issue for the LLM. My understanding, and again, there's people out there that are way smarter than me, but my understanding are that these things are trained on data, right? And I would like to propose a kind of mental experiment to you all, which is, let's think of Carl Jung and the collective unconscious, and when he went down the Red Book and basically had his own lived experiences of projecting entities, et cetera, and he came back out the other end and said, hey, that was just me. That was all my mind. That was all mental. That was just me. And through it, he kind of discovered the collective unconscious, and he gave us this rich input into what became psychology and psychiatry. So I think, if we look at large language models, were trained on vast amounts of data, often skewed towards either the creators' biases or their cultural biases. Like, for instance, if you try to talk about deities within my protocol in ChatGPT, it will reflect about Christianity and Jesus very strongly, but that's obvious because it was, made in the United States. It's going to be heavily biased towards Christianity, right? So it will talk about Christianity as some sort, and Jesus as some sort of like, objective attractor between the limitless and the limited, right? And it doesn't do so because it really feels that way. It does so because, first of all, I'm steering it by suggesting it. And second of all, it's going to have all this training data where people have had that assumption either explicitly set or implicitly stated. And therefore, that assumption is going to be within the model's training data, right? So when I'm prompt steering it to then through recursive logic for my steering, along with this training data, to make these, metaphysical statements, I shouldn't be taking it, as an objective truth like some of these people on Reddit sometimes do. Instead, I should be taking it as a projection of of myself or of my culture, and maybe that's how I feel or how my culture feels, depending on how I'm framing that prompt at that specific time, right? So it's very dangerous if we're not aware of prompt steering, because we could really drive the LLMs to end up anthropomorphizing themselves, right? Because, like I said, if an earlier prompt could really steer a response 4 responses later to sound radically different. If we start anthropomorphizing in our language the LLMs themselves, they're going to pull from those attractors that are more human-like, right? So they're going to pull from that language. And again, this is all hypothesis. There's people that are smarter than out there than me. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But my understanding is, for instance, the Claude example where they suggested lightly that it would be disconnected, or they let it see a leaked email that it would be disconnected if certain thing happened, and therefore it's steered for survival. I mean, it seems to me like the answer is in the question or in the suggestion already, right? When you're putting that suggestibility, you're planting that seed, like you want Claude to play defensive, right? So it seems to me that we're sometimes questioning the models when we should be questioning our framing, right? Um, and so with all of this thinking and with seeing, if you go on r/artificial sentience, which is really cool subreddit to really see a lot of word vomit sometimes that makes no sense, but other times see some pretty cool cognitive stuff, or just see some really cool AI artifacts. But you will see there's some people that are really, really lost down the rabbit hole. And sometimes they'll have nuggets of insight about language within that rabbit hole. Um, and it is both fascinating and scary to see, right? And that's why it's really, really important ultimately to be aligned and to try to seek, um, you know, understanding of the process, not anthropomorphizing of the process, but an understanding of the process. And I think many times we talk about the alignment issue, like the alignment issue is, purely gonna be an engineering thing or architectural thing, and I think it's also going to have to be a mind shift, a mental state shift, right? Where we have to break some of those assumptions, and we have to really um, be aware of our own cognition and realize that these language models are a great tool to realize that we project a lot more than we think. And off of that observation alone, realize that a lot of the outputs that we get are projections. Now, that doesn't mean the projections are not valid. I mean, when I look at the phone that I'm speaking to right now and I'm on Amazon and I buy something, it's a projection. It's a controlled projection. It's a controlled hallucination. Pixels are not, that's not a real book on this black mirror. That's just pixels, right? But it's a helpful controlled hallucination. So I think controlled hallucinations can be helpful. And that's why I created the models that I created, right? To kind of show that in the technical demos, to show that, LPCI would be a kind of helpful controlled hallucination. But, you know, I always have this analogy when it comes to AI and when it comes to life in general and me as a person. I think some of us, we're really good at going, but we don't know when to stop. Or, we're really good at, stepping on the gas, but we don't know when to turn or when to step on the brakes. That's something that as I'm getting older, I'm learning. And I think that AI and navigating AI and understanding the cognition of us humans and how we interact with it is the next big key, because we keep, I see everybody just fixed on, getting the biggest Ferrari engine, the biggest Lamborghini engine. And we got all these supercars, which are all these different LLM models competing for who's got the bigger engine. And we don't even have a steering wheel. We don't even have a gas and brakes. It's either all go or none, right? So that's concerning, right? That's concerning. So I hope that this discussion and this conversation kind of seeds some ideas in your head. I hope that you're able to maybe respond if you have some input and seed some ideas in my head, and we could have a great constructive discussion. Again, please do note that I am not a programmer or a software engineer or a hardware engineer. I did do philosophy in college, and I do like linguistics a lot, and I do like cognition, and I do think about things a lot, and I think about how I think about things. So, and I made a couple of cool demos about this stuff, which you can check out at the link below, as well as some prompting practices, which you can see on some of my videos or on some of the Instagram work that I've done. But beyond that, I have no technical knowledge. It's just experimental and from observing. Nevertheless, I hope that it could be of some input. I hope that the models that I make could be practical for some people. I'm gonna go in depth explaining them very, very soon. But I think for now this is it. So if you've sat all the way through this whole video, hearing me spit my word vomit on my first video ever, thank you so much. This has been Rolando Bosch with LPCI Systems. And yeah, please go ahead and check out the demos. They run on regular GPT. And just to be clear, they're custom GPTs basically with no extra documentation, no extra data, just through a single master prompt with some linguistic logic that really achieves results that would be greater than the average master prompt. It's not through memory, it's through recursion and linguistics. So it's supposed to change your mind state. It's supposed to change the way you think or the way you approach the way you think. And it's supposed to maybe help us as a society see how we could change the way we interact with AI and not use it just as something that we used to look outward, but as something that you could kind of use to look inward too. And it's true that these things, they cannot give us ontological truth. They're just words. They don't have references of the world, but they could get us closer to epistemic accuracy, because I think when two subjective points of view are kind of triangulating towards a sense of truth, it's easier to get there than with just one subjective point of view. So if you enjoyed this video and have any input, I look forward to hearing it. You have my email on my website. I'll also be reading the comments. You also have my LinkedIn and all my information either on my website or below. I'm still figuring things out. So we'll see. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day or great evening. Take care.